Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Saturday Summary. The main story for tonight is Tesla and Starbucks. So, Tesla workers have been planning to unionize in Buffalo, New York. It's like a mega factory there. Some of the reasons for this is they have less than average pay, like less than the median pay, and they didn't have that much sick time, just general, like, bad working conditions. There's also some complaints about not having bathroom time and stuff like that. Uh, and this would actually fit in with U.S. car companies as Ford, General Motors, and like other U.S. automobile companies do have unions. The only companies that don't are like Nissan and Hyundai and all foreign-owned companies. But what happened is that they got fired. 24 hours after announcing the unionized, they sent their letter and they got fired. They were all fired. Not all of them, but most of them were fired. It's illegal to fire someone for trying to unionize. So what tech companies and other companies do is they give these performance reviews, and since these performance reviews are probably just going to be bad, and they just fire them off of that. But Tesla says, I do have to give like Tesla's what Tesla says. They're saying that these workers are fired based on performance, and they date that back to February 3rd, I believe, for these employees. And Tesla also says this is like an annual thing they do. They fire people at this around this time. So, but it's more than what they have in the past. So, they are looking into it. Federal regulators are looking into it. Now, it's not just the busting of unions that has happened at Tesla. They have recalled a lot of self-driving cars. 362,000 to be exact are going to be recalled. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said the autopiloting technology acts in an unlawful or unpredictable manner. And what essentially this is saying is not following traffic laws. It's essentially like GTA, where they just like go ignore traffic laws, like yielding and stuff like that. I'm not sure whether it's actually like just crashing into people, like NASCAR or something. But there have been 41 crashes since 2016 with this automatic, like with this self-driving technology, of which 14 crashes have been fatal, with 19 people dying. The National Highway Safety Administration is looking into those as well. Now, Teslas are not the only thing to be recalled. Starbucks Frappuccino drinks are getting recalled as well. About 300,000 glass bottles, or 25,000 cases of Starbucks Frappuccinos, are being recalled. I actually didn't know this until looking into it, but PepsiCo produces these bottles. It's not Starbucks. So PepsiCo bottles them and produces them. And what they found glass shards in these Frappuccino glass bottles, and just by common sense, you would cut open your throat, which could be like fatal. So they just I think they said the classic abundance of safety, they were calling it. And just like Tesla, Starbucks is firing people for trying to unionize. Workers United, the union that is organizing Starbucks across the nation, and about 200 employees have been unjustly fired, and that is a Workers United claim. Some of the workers will be forcefully reinstated. I think one already has been. There's 50 of those 200 that have been fired are being looked into further. So it might be 50 of these employees might be reinstated. One has already been offered her job back, but for the most part, 150 out of 200 is still kind of a win for Starbucks. Moving on to FTX, a name that I haven't heard in quite a while. They've gotten 400 million from Modulo Capital, which is a hedge fund that Sam Bankman-Fried invested into, and this is part of a large effort by FTX and bankruptcy lawyers to get the money that Sam Bankman-Fried put into a lot of different companies. And this is just the most recent one. I think they've gotten a couple $100 million more dollars from other companies, but this is the most recent one they got from, or they're negotiating with Modulo Capital. They haven't actually gotten it yet. But they plan to get this and put it back to customers, give it back to customers. So I haven't heard much about Sam Bankman-Fried for a while, but yeah. So Sam Bankman-Fried is in a little bit of hot water right now. He is at his parents' house using internet and encrypted apps. Allegedly, they think that he is sending messages to witnesses. So the judge ordered him to not use any encrypted apps. But more recent controversy is that he uses VPNs, as VPNs are not encrypted. So he used like a VPN to watch the Super Bowl or something. So the judge is considering more restrictions for Sam Bankman-Fried, and he is still at his parents' house. And of that 250 million bail that he's actually in, he has spent no money for that. His house is liable for that, and I think 2 other rich people. So he's just living at his parents' house, doing nothing, and he wasn't really punished so far. They are talking about a jail sentence, but we'll see what happens of that. Now, speaking of cryptocurrency and FTX and all that, let's go into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at a high right now, and it's kind of peculiar as regulations are actually happening because of FTX and the crashes of cryptocurrency. They're putting more regulations on Bitcoin, and there's a couple of reasons why this may be happening. One is that as regulations go up, it makes maybe Bitcoin safer. So they're expecting Bitcoin to go up because of this. Another reason could be because investors are losing faith in very, very bad coins, and they're like shifting their money into Bitcoin, which is generally accepted to be a more safer currency. Or it could be the final option is due to shorting, kind of like what happened with GameStop, where a bunch of people were shorting Bitcoin, and to cover the losses, they have to keep buying Bitcoin so that they don't lose a ton of money because they were shorting it. Now, some of the regulations that are happening to cryptocurrency are mostly fines, actually. There's a lot of fines, but I'm not going to read all of these to you. But the main 2 things I read to you is the NBA player. He is forced to pay $1.4 million for advertising in cryptocurrency under false pretenses, I believe. And then there's a new rule at the end here, custody rule, where it limits customer money being used to invest into crypto, which is kind of how the FTX thing kind of happened. So what would happen, it would be like a bank, right? You would give money to these crypto exchanges, and they would reinvest that into other properties and stuff like a real bank would. But these investments that these crypto exchanges used were crypto. So it was like a loop that is not viable at all, and which led to the collapse of FTX. So they're restricting that, and hopefully nothing like that will happen in the future. And this is probably going to be a reoccurring trend this year. There's going to be a lot of regulations for crypto as FTX kind of started all this, and expect to see more regulations for the crypto space. Let's move on to the real economy. And the real economy, which I call real, is really just the stock market, which is kind of fake. But the stock market has been kind of, well, not really increasing. It's kind of staying the same, which is kind of scaring some people investing into it, because the Fed wants to increase the rates so that inflation will go down. Basically, we need a controlled stock market collapse to decrease inflation. Big layoffs from companies do help the Fed accomplish their goal. It's still not enough, as the Fed is predicted to raise rates from 5% to 5.5%, which is higher than projected what we thought the Fed would do. And this is just like a prediction. It's not actually what's happened yet, but they're saying that it's not a big enough decrease in the market to effectively decrease inflation. And going on the same topic here, inflation is still not decreased as much as it should be, and it still remains high. I mean, it has decreased a little bit. 500,000 jobs were made in January, and these jobs are generally higher paying, which is, again, not helping the inflation, because when you get paid more for the same work, that helps contribute to inflation. While it is good for the individual people who are getting these jobs, I'm not saying it is bad to have these new jobs, but in an economy where a recession may be happening in the future, it is not the best to keep hiring people like we are doing. I'm not too experienced in this topic, so I encourage you to look into it yourself, and we're going on. But what I can say is that food prices have increased dramatically in the US, and these 0.5% increases and 0.4% increases are a lot when you put in the grand scheme of things. Prices of foods have risen generally, and Coca-Cola and PepsiCo, and like I said in the past week's Saturday summary, is that Unilever and PepsiCo and all of them are raising prices by double digits, like 10%, 12%. And generally, the food index was up 10.1% in the US. So this increase in prices is kind of a problem, as seniors are not having enough money to afford these new prices. These rising food prices have outpaced Social Security benefits, and seniors are unfortunately having to resort to food banks and other sources for food. Going along with this trend of food prices increasing, the UK has their prices increasing as well. The UK's inflation has slowed, but food prices are set to increase, kind of like the US. And the annual rate of food inflation is around at 6.7%, the highest it has been in the UK for 45 years. The increase in prices has outpaced wage increases in the UK. Going on with inflation and higher cost, medical care is being avoided by Americans. I'm sorry for those Europeans who have that free health care. We do not, and 4 out of 10 Americans say that they would not get medical care because of the cost. And this goes for prescription drugs and treatments and stuff like that. Generally, costs are increasing for just about everything, but things like medical care are very important, and it's kind of concerning that it is becoming something that is unaffordable for most. Now, inflation, again, is not bad for everyone, as retailers are just raking in the money as customers are buying more products and at higher prices. So unlike the UK, the job market in the US is very strong, and the increase in wages helps buy these expensive prices. Almost all retailers have increased sales in January, with department stores being at the highest with a 17.5% increase in sales. Overall, sales for retailers have increased around 3%, and that's higher than the projected 2%. But these retailers have a kind of problem. It's kind of weird. They don't have any CEOs. Gap, Vans, North Face, and I think Victoria's Secret, they don't have CEOs, and they're almost like they're not even planning to replace their CEOs that left. 11 out of 91 retail companies in the Fortune 1000 saw chief executives leave. These companies are not great at converting store workers into corporate positions, and training college workers into CEOs is kind of a weird process for companies. These companies don't really have a direct transition from normal working people to corporate positions. There's just a lot of companies with no CEOs now. Speaking of companies without CEOs, YouTube has Susan Wojcicki, who was the CEO, retire. If you want to learn more about this, I suggest watching other people's videos as they go more in depth about it. But unlike other companies, YouTube actually got a replacement CEO, and it is uncertain where he'll go with YouTube. Probably be about the same as it's always been. Hopefully, hopefully he brings back dislikes, but I don't see that happening at all. That's just my opinion. And finally, for today, big companies want TikTokers. They're having internships for college students to run their TikTok accounts, and they're opening up positions called Chief TikTok Officer. Instead of a CEO, they want a Chief TikTok Officer, and it's kind of part of this bigger scheme where companies are realizing that TikTokers are really good at marketing for their generation. And the newer generation is going to turn into the older generation eventually, so you need to get them while they're young. Don't misquote me there. So they need these younger generations to make TikToks for them, and it's kind of worked. I've seen some Duolingo TikTok TikToks, and they're actually really good. And I did not know that they hired. Well, I mean, I guess I did know, but I didn't really think about it that they are hiring Gen Z to run these TikTok accounts. This is about it for this week. I'll see you next time.